What's up, y'all? A little faith, and welcome to episode number 7 of
the Fagnostic Podcast.
I'm your host, Matt Hayes, and if I'm still giving you episodes, it means that I'm still looking for answers. On today's show, I have best-selling author Dr. Alan Downs. He has written 7 books, some of which are New York Times bestsellers. One of those books, The Velvet Rage, is one of the most transformative pieces of nonfiction literature for gay men. In it, Alan draws on his own struggle with shame and anger, contemporary research, and stories from his patients to passionately describe the stages of a gay man's journey out of shame, and offers practical and inspired strategies to stop the cycle of avoidance and self-defeating behavior. The Velvet Rage is an empowering book that has already changed the public discourse on gay culture and helped shape the identity of an entire generation of gay men. Dr. Downs is also a clinical psychologist, and his internationally acclaimed work has been published in over 27 languages.
Solo sé leer en inglés.
And frequent media commentator on the psychology of gay men. He has more than 25 years of experience in working with individuals from all walks of life and is currently in private practice in Southern California. In addition to his expertise in working with gay men, he's an intensively trained dialectical behavior therapy therapist who has worked with individuals as well as therapists who are working to learn the mindfulness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance skills which are so effectively taught within the DBT therapeutic framework.
You down with DBT? Yeah, you know me.
Yes, I know that's the second show in a row where I've made that joke. Most recently, Dr. Downs has been quoted in Vogue, The Guardian, and the New York Times. As a side note, my mama raised me to always call people with a PhD doctor because their degrees deserve the utmost of respect. But in this episode, Dr. Downs requested me refer to him using his first name, Alan. So y'all please don't get mad at me if you got a PhD after your name. He asked for me to call him Alan.
Son, don't make me whoop you in front of your audience.
So, here is Alan. Alan, thank you so much for being here today. Your book, The Velvet Rage, has helped me in different stages of life, I might add, that we're going to talk about in a bit. But I know that my audience knows of this book. Most gay men that I know have this on their bedside table, if not on their work desk, because of how important and relevant it is to our own progression through life and our traumas as gay men. And I'm just humbled that you found it fit to give me an hour of your time today. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be read. So many times in my life, I had aspired to be able to write something that would make a difference, and to hear that it's read and that it's of value is really important. So thanks for having me.
It has made a difference, I can tell you. The first question I ask every guest is, are you a believer?
I am, in the sense that I believe in that every face that we encounter is the face of the divine, and that is a humanist. That's the fundamental definition of a humanist, and that's what I am.
That is what I'm finding as well. I don't know what I believe yet, hence this entire podcast. But I am seeing that if I am to believe in the divine, it is because of the people that I see every day. But the caveat to that is that I also see the devil in many people that I meet on a daily basis. And so that's where I challenge of like, well, which one is supreme? And then the second question I ask everyone is, can you just identify your pronouns for us?
Sure. It's he and him. And I go by traditional male pronouns.
Great. And I could see as I added that bit onto the last one, I could see your therapist brain working of like, oh, we're going to dissect that.
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of like being non-binary in your beliefs, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be a devil. What it can mean, though, is that there are those who are wounded among us, and that the divine is there if we just allow it to grow. And some of the experiences that we go through in life prevent that from showing in our behavior, and particularly toward the ones we love the most. It is the nature of human beings that we hurt the folks that we love the most. And we have to learn to be able to be resilient and to find within ourselves what I would consider to be the divine. Some might call it love, but it is the kindness of our human nature that we extend to one another. And in fact, I think that's the power that heals us most. If you think about any time in your life when something miraculous has happened, any time there's been a life-changing event, something that you remember that, it'll go down in your memoirs as being really important, love was always present. in those events.
Yeah.
Always.
You're so right.
That says
I love that non-binary take on the divine. That's because yesterday I had a flat tire yesterday, and I had to go like unexpectedly to get the tire changed and everything. And this guy that I started talking to at the tire shop, he had this ring on that just struck me, and it looked tribal or Celtic or something. And I said, "Oh, that ring is beautiful. What does it mean?" And he said, "Oh, it's actually a symbol or emblem for Satan, and it like depicts the nature of water, earth, and air, or one of those three elements." And he said, "Oh, but I'm not a Satanist. I don't, you know." And I said, "Oh, please, like the Jesus people are doing nothing. So let's hell Satan and see if that works, you know?" So it's interesting that we can maybe see the two as almost both benefiting. And I don't know, that's really, I'm going to do some digging on that in my journal.
You know what? There was a guy who was really quite profound in mid 20th century, and he wrote something called the Big Book for Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill W. I'm not in recovery, but I'm a huge fan of some of the things that he wrote. And he talked about the higher power. And he deliberately did that because whatever name you're going to give it, if you give it Satan, if you give it God, if you give it the divine, if you give it human being on this planet, there is that seemingly kind of intelligent force that we don't seem to be equipped to really sense and
Yep.
understand. So I would say, even among myself and with you and anyone else, someone that pops up and says, "Oh, I know what that force is, and I can tell you exactly how it operates," they're not telling the truth.
Well, and that's
This
the
could,
biggest problem in the world today is that, each major religion is saying, I have the answer. I have the way. My God's the real God. But tapping
it
into
was
that, and instead of the higher power, I wonder if tapping into the lower power is worth digesting, because like that's where the fire is. That's where our gut instincts lie, you know?
we keep going to this binary sort of experience. It's like whatever power it is, it's inside of us, and if it's inside of you and inside of everyone that we encounter, it changes things. Let me dive into something really close to our lives, because as gay men, one of the things that we find everywhere we go is this sort of hypersexual environment, and what I call sort of the tribal music that keeps playing, and it's the pounding that reminds us that it's sex, 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 sex. Well, if I'm the divine and you're the divine, then contact between us, including sexual contact, becomes really an act of worship.
Yes, yes, yes.
Or if I reject part of who I am, whether it's in my physical body or who I am psychologically, then isn't that a form of blasphemy? Because it's a rejection of the divine. And so when we come into our full power, and having read the book, and I know a lot of your listeners probably have read the book, it's about authenticity. Your power lies in your authenticity. And it makes sense to me that that's saying you've accessed the divine. You've embraced all of the divine that's in you, even the parts that don't necessarily show well, even the parts that in some other time in our lives we may have said, "No, thank you, I won't have that, I'll be something else." When we strip away all of that and can really accept ourselves and be ourselves, we move into our power. It, Personal career and in my private life, I have to say, the more I'm able to access that authentic self, the more powerful I've become, the more content I've become in life. And maybe 20, 30 years ago, I couldn't have said that. But now I really get a sense that the more we go after what's authentic and real, the more we find that place of contentment in our lives.
Absolutely. And contentment's a big topic for your book. There's a lot of how-tos and personal experiences that you talk about in there. Can you tell us how you ended up here? Because I know that you also, in the forward of the book, you talk about how you left the clinical psychology world for a bit to go work in computers or something that sounded really smart to me and foreign. But can you give us just the story to date?
Sure. Well, the long story, and I'll make it as brief as I can, is that I started out in industrial organizational psychology. In fact, earned a master's in human factors engineering, which is ergonomics. It's about making things that fit for humans. And the reason I did that, I used to be really embarrassed to say this, but I'll tell you the truth, is because I read an article in Money magazine that said that industrial organizational psychologists made the most money of any psychologist, and that there were more CEOs that had a background of industrial organizational psych than just about any other degree. So I thought,
Wow.
well, that's for me. I'm going to do this. So I did, and my first job out of grad school was at Hewlett Packard in Palo Alto, and I worked there for a number of years. And really, it was also in conjunction with the years that I found out that I was HIV positive. I have to add that in, because I can distinctly remember going into Hewlett Packard every day thinking, does the world really need another computer? I mean, is this really making a difference for us? Does this make the difference in my life? Is it making the world a better place? Because when you, in those days, keep in mind now, this was back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, this was a terminal illness.
Yeah.
And so we thought we had maybe 7, 8 years to live from the time you seroconverted. And people were dying around me right and left. I buried more friends and lovers in those years than I ever dreamed I would. So we didn't look back, we kept looking forward, and I kept thinking, okay, limited time. I've got to make this count. I've got to do something that matters. So, I wouldn't recommend this. I don't recommend it to any of my clients, but I kind of jumped off the cliff, frankly, and quit the job at HP. And I had a partner at the time who wanted to do his art to paint. He's a painter. And we did that. We moved to the French Quarter in New Orleans because it was cheap. We rented a shotgun in the French Quarter for $150 a month.
Oh, God.
And it had air conditioning. We were so proud of that. But he painted and I wrote. And out of that writing came a couple things. It came my first book. And it also became the awareness for me that really where my heart had always been was in clinical psych. And so I went back and I earned a postdoctorate in clinical psych and published my first book. The book did terrible in sales, but it was very newsy. It threw me on everything. I mean, when I say everything, I mean 60 Minutes. I was on all the nightly news programs. I was on the morning programs. Martha Teichner, there's an old clip of Martha Teichner from CBS Sunday Morning. We were walking in front of St. Louis Cathedral in the French Quarter, and she's talking to me about this book that I'd written, the title of which was Corporate Executions. And it was very newsy, and a lot of people were interested in the topic because it was a compassionate view of what layoffs were doing to our country at the time. It allowed me to actually go to the White House and to speak at the Clinton White House, which was amazing. I mean, really something. After that book, I decided I wanted a bestseller. Now, stay with me on this because there are a lot of people who say they want a bestseller, but I wanted a bestseller for bestseller's sake. And I wrote a bestseller. It's called Beyond the Looking Glass. It was about corporate narcissism, or what I called corporate narcissism. It's not a great book. But I did it because I wanted to get in that slot, and I did it for about 2 seconds. But it counted. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for just a very short period of time. But you know what? It wasn't me. It was an intellectualized sort of. It was that facade. It was the professional Alan. It was the Dr. Downs that I was putting out there, and I really struggled with that. And it took me a few more books to learn to write honestly, to discover myself in the process. And it also took, I'm fast forwarding a few years, a breakup with the partner that was the artist that really sent me spinning for a while. And that in that period of time, I wrote The Velvet Rage.
Seems like your professional path mirrored what The Velvet Rage talks about, and that getting to that place of being able to live, but also work authentically.
Yes, it did. And my work has always been so closely linked to who I am. It's just, I'll never retire because it's one of the things that I love doing, and I can't imagine not doing it. When I wrote The Velvet Rage, I wrote it in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in a one-room apartment that was in an old adobe that must have been, I'm sure that building went back to the 1800s at least. It was so small that I went to Bed Bath & Beyond with a friend, and we saw this shower curtain. And I said, oh my God, that shower curtain's made out of the same material as my bedspread. And my friend looked at me and she said, honey, you're the only one that I know that can touch your shower curtain from your bed. It was, but out of that came a really wonderful thing. And the reason why I share that, and I hope it's of interest to listeners, is that, sometimes it's out of those really tough spots, the dark places that we go to where there's loss and where there's confusion, ambiguity in our lives, and it's not clear. It was not clear at all when I wrote The Velvet Rage that it would be any sort of success. In fact, my greatest fear about that book was that it would, number one, label me as a gay only psychologist, and I would never see straight people again, or would never see women or children, because that would be off limits as a gay only psychologist. And that it would so peg me that I would never be able to write for a general market again as a writer. None of those things actually came to pass.
Right.
And I also was concerned that it would be considered that I was pathologizing gay men by writing it. And there were a few, very few reviewers that said that, but by and large, in fact, the ones that were some of the most vocal were the ones in support of the book, were the ones that I feared the most when I wrote it. But what I want to really get across is at the time that I wrote it, it seemed obvious to me. It seemed so obvious that I thought, no one's going to buy this book. We know this. You know, this is just the air that we breathe as gay men. But as it turned out, it was something that touched, I think, a lot of people right where they were living at that moment. It's not an easy thing to do as a writer. It's a real gift if you get it, if you're able to do it and write it down on paper. I always quote Ernest Hemingway, who said, just write one true sentence, which is the challenge of any writer, to be able to write that. So that's kind of where The Velvet Rage came from, and that's my journey from industrial psych and the business world into clinical psych. Since then, I can't tell you that I haven't kind of taken some deviations from it. I've run two large healthcare organizations, and both times come back to being a therapist because it's where my heart is. Sitting in the rooms, having the conversations like you and I are having today, that's what I love. That's me. And it doesn't matter, and I've finally gotten to the place of really accepting that it doesn't matter how much money it makes, it doesn't matter how much glory comes with it. That's what brings me joy. And I'll follow that no matter what, because there's no other path for me but to be sitting right here and having these conversations every day.
Yeah. And that's why you won't retire, because this is your passion. This brings you joy. And so it's not work. It's just, it's fueling your own desires.
And that's not to say, there's certainly days that you wake up and you think, oh my God, we got to work today. You know, we got to get it on. We got to be smart. You got to listen. You got to be empathetic. And it can be a challenge, but it renews itself.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, on that day that may be a little tougher, a couple of days after that or a week or two after that, it renews itself and it becomes that thing that's just really meaningful and important to you.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. I hit that in my life. A lot of people have struggled. I know a lot of folks that are in entertainment struggle to find, what is it? What's the thing for me? And the one thing I would say out of all of this, not that my story is the be all and end all, but it does kind of land on one truth, and that is, get out of your head and get in your feet and do. Because the only way we learn this stuff is by doing it. We don't figure it out by armchair quarterbacking it, you know, planning, oh, I'm going to go, this will lead. It doesn't happen that way. You got to jump in and do it. And if it's not the right thing for you, you'll know it when you do it, and you'll self-correct, and you'll find it organically.
I love that too. Get out of your head and onto your feet, which is a little callback to tapping into your lower power, might I add. I'm going to really look into trademarking this concept of tapping into your lower power. This could be my Velvet Rage. So what I love about the book too is that it quickly presents the problem, and then the rest of the book, y'all can't see what I'm holding up, but I look at this as being the first 2 pages of the actual part of the book as presenting the problem, and then getting into the rest of the hundreds of pages being the solution, which to me says that this is not a quick fix. It's more of a marathon and perhaps a lifelong experiment, but with a fabulous eternal payoff, but not only for you, but, and I want you to speak on this too, but this book to me also teaches me how not only to heal my own trauma, but how I can heal the trauma of those that have come before me. And I was speaking to you before we hit record about how when I'm in neighborhoods such as West Hollywood or Boys Town or whatever, that I just sense trauma everywhere around me, and it really makes me cringe. And I just wonder how much of previous spirits are in the air, in the trees, in the sidewalks, in the bars, that are waiting on us to do the work so that future generations don't have to, or at least the work is easier and lighter.
So we have mentors that show us, because I think, regardless of how accepting the world is around us, there's something embedded deep inside of us. It's in our biology that as kids, we want to be like mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
We really do. We want to fit in. Let me kind of back up just a little bit and say, the book is about shame, and it's about how we regulate shame. Shame is a gift. It's not a bad thing. It's a gift because it's the emotional warning that you're not fitting in, that you're on the outside. And the reason why I say that's a gift is because we need to be in the village. We need to be under the care of someone for a good 18 years of our lives, if not longer, to become self-sufficient, to be able to take care of ourselves. And so that emotion of shame is firing when you don't fit in, when you're not like everyone else. Because when you're not like everyone else, you're in danger. Okay? So it fires for us. And regardless of how accepting mom and dad may be, or the family or kids around us, we still aren't like mom and dad. And we know that without anyone telling us that. And so the struggle will always be individual. It's not really a societal struggle. It's for each person. I firmly believe, frankly, it's not unique to the gay world, and it is the journey of this life, frankly, is to really grapple with that and to be able to come to the place where we take away the barriers that prevent us from being ourselves. Shame really impresses on us that you need to put on a facade, that you need to be something different, that you need to trade off your desires, your hopes, your dreams so that you fit in. Authenticity says, I'm going to be myself. And when I am myself, it draws other people to me and I'm safe. Right?
And that's the reward too. And we're going to get into the 3 stages that the book goes over with different stages of the gay life for gay men. But I stage 2, and maybe I shouldn't say this until we get through stage 1, but I'll just read these out and then we can circle back. But the first stage is being overwhelmed by shame. The second stage being is compensating for shame. And then the third stage, the final stage, is cultivating that authenticity you spoke of. And my fear or my struggle is that when we are stuck in stage 2, there's a great reward and a temporary immediate reward. And it's hard to convince ourselves that it's worth the work put in to getting to stage 3 because the reward is not as immediate. It's not as embellished by social media and social situations.
Absolutely. The rewards are really powerful in stage 2. The validation that you get for having the body, for having the boyfriend, for having the success is really powerful. But here's the deal. How long can you stay on that treadmill?
Well, I think we know that some people choose to stay on it a long time.
They do, and they wear out eventually. And you get to the place where it's like one more boyfriend, one more beautiful man, one more, success, one more house, one more whatever. You fill in the label, and it loses its meaning over time. And so we come to stage 3, I think, many times desperation, because the things that used to give us that gave us that sense of value and validation don't work so much anymore. They give you the hit, but then they lose their value. It's frankly very close to what happens in many drug addictions, where you're chasing an original high that you never really get. It promises a lot, but it never really pays off completely. You decide, if I just get to this place in my career, I'll have the house, I'll have the second house, I'll be able to hit all the circuit parties, I'll be able to do whatever. And then you get it, and you don't even enjoy it because you're so busy remodeling the next house to go to the next place to do the next thing. And you keep going because you have to.
Is that the process addiction that you speak of?
Yes.
So, and you do a good job. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. It just loses its value and brings us to a place of either you're going to frenetically keep going after that, or you stop and you really examine your life and say, there's got to be something more than this.
Yeah. And you do a great job of also kind of mirror or tying in the idea of process addiction and also substance addiction, because oftentimes, as I'm sure you see in your patients, they are one and of the same, or at least exhibited the same way. And can you just give us a synopsis of how you came to understand and then communicate these stages?
Sure. You know, they are arbitrary, I have to say. They're really, originally, the reason why I divided into three stages was a writing convention, because it's very difficult to write about how this progresses without having some sort of way of dividing it into categories, into buckets, if you will, and say this bucket is here, these are in this bucket, and so forth. The truth is, the way we live our lives, we kind of circle through stage one and stage two, and sometimes into stage three and stage two, and we may find ourselves, enjoying some of the aspects of stage one again. So we don't necessarily move through it in a linear way. It's more curvilinear in time. But in terms of writing and making it clear, I drew those lines in the sand to say, here's stage one, and then eventually the majority of our work moves into stage two, and then eventually we move into stage three. I will say, there's kind of an assumption sometimes that when we get into stage three that we've kind of moved into the monastery. It's like, we don't ever enjoy things that we used to enjoy. We're just content, and we stay at home, and our lives become somewhat mundane, and nothing could be further from the truth. In stage three, we enjoy many of the same things that we enjoy in stage one and two. It's that they're not the main course. They're not the main event in our lives. They're things that we access from time to time, and we enjoy them, but we know that they don't define us.
Yeah. And contentment also is demonized a bit, especially here in LA and other major markets. We're told that if we're content, we're either lazy or we're complacent or we're not going to get ahead. And I think that's why people also get comfortable in the stage two, because if they're always on this upwards trajectory, and I mean, I'm in this category. I'm not speaking from a place of the monastery, like you just said, but that's really tragic.
It's the antithesis of the American dream, if you think about it. It's saying, listen, the most corrosive words that you can internalize are, I could be happier. Okay? Because the truth of the matter is, happiness resides inside of me and inside of you. It's not out there. It never was, it never will be. And so you can aspire to have goals, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
We do save for a rainy day. We do things in our career to help us progress. Those things are all good. But the truth of the matter is, you will not be happier when you do it.
Yeah.
Happiness is a choice that we make in the present moment, and we accept what is. Many times what happens is we decide, because we didn't get what we ordered off the menu, that we can't be happy with what was served. And we have to send it back. And we have to demand that it be exactly what we want to order. Now, not you, not me, not any of us got what we ordered off the menu. If you start with mom and dad, not one of us got the parents that were perfect. Not one of us got really even the parents necessarily that we needed. And yet what we did get was good. And so acceptance is learning to really see through that and to embrace what is there and to find the joy and the contentment that is in what is present in this moment.
Sure. So with going back to the three stages as well, what do you tell someone who's listening to this, who is stuck in stage one, which is for the most part, people that are still in the closet, people that are still in the churches and being told that they're going to hell? What's your message to them?
Well, think of it this way. It's a phobia. It is an irrational fear that if I reveal to the world who I really am, I will not be loved. That's the essence of stage one, okay? And until we do the very horrifying act of looking under the bed to discover that there is no monster there, that phobia grows. And the more that we feed it, the greater it becomes and the more it controls our lives. If there are very few things in the field of psychology that we can say are fact, but this is one of them. This is a fact. We know how to cure a phobia. And it works it works literally every time, and that is exposure therapy. When we expose you to the feared thing, if you're afraid of snakes, and I am, I grew up in Louisiana, and water moccasins are to be to be avoided by at all costs. Well, if you're afraid of them, the way to get you over that fear is to expose you to snakes. And we do it gradually. At first, we might show you pictures of it, and then we might go to a zoo and see them in a cage. And then we're going to take you out to the bayou and put you in the water right along with them. Close, closer, closer. We do approximations of it. And I can see you're getting, makes me nervous even talking about it. But eventually, what happens is you break that fear. It's
Or
like
you
the
die, Alan. Or you die.
True, in certain circumstances, but in most cases you don't. And particularly when it comes to coming out, it's an irrational fear.
Right.
There's no danger really present. And the things that you feared when you were in the closet really never came true. But when you were on the other side of the closet, you were convinced that they were going to come true. Absolutely convinced. Your life was going to fall apart. No one was going to love you. You would be alone. You would have a less than fulfilling life. You would never be successful because everyone knows that gay people are not in the fraternities of success in this world. You'd be an outcast, a leper. And none of that is true. Absolutely none. But until you face it, it doesn't begin to kind of dissolve in front of you. So coming out is that process of exposure. The more that we expose ourselves and we realize there's no monster, that nothing bad happens to us, then we move on into stage 2. And in stage 2, a lot of times we kind of take the opposite track, which is we've figured out that there's not a monster under the bed. And then we decide that what we've got to do is we've got to put on a facade. We've got to be something lovable that others will be attracted to. And we begin the process of rebuilding our lives in a way that earns validation, in a way that's not really authentic. It's not true for everyone, but for most of us, I think, particularly those of us that really struggled at a young age, and that's key. There's a certain window of development in which if we're not validated for who we are, at the core of who we are, that we tend to grow into it as adults, struggling much more with needing validation and needing the approval of others, getting on the table and saying, what dance do you want me to do, and doing it to the best of our abilities. There's a talk I give, and I started out, and I know listeners, when I give this talk, think I'm a complete asshole. I'm not. But I recite all the accomplishments that I've made, and having published 7 books, having 2 PhDs, having been on Oprah Winfrey, having been on every talk show, having been the CEO of 2 organizations. What's that really about, Matt? What is that? But love me. Adding something to myself, because if you knew Alan, open kimono, completely, you'd look at him and say, no thank you. And so I've got to add something. Well, maybe you'll like this. Maybe I'll add this into the mix. Maybe you'll love that. That's where we kind of swing to the other side. After getting over that phobia of coming out, we start to do that dance. And it does bring some attention, and it does bring some validation, but it's hollow.
Are you familiar with the work of Tennessee Williams?
Oh, God, yes.
So, in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, he speaks of, speaks of the click. He drinks to the point of excess because he has to get to that click in his head. And I've always thought that can apply to figurative situations as well. And this kind of speaks to what that desire for validation. If we can just work hard enough, if we can look good enough to make the click happen.
Yes. If we can just get to that place where someday we'll be in a place where everyone will love us. Think about it as the actor, for example, who thinks, when I get that show, when I get that movie, when I get that role, everyone will love me. And eventually, if you're any good and you work hard at it, you'll get it. But it doesn't satisfy like you thought it would.
Well, and look how many stars also fall apart after their success because they didn't have they didn't get out of their head or into their feet, like you said earlier.
Right. And that validation works for a while, but it's not enough. It's not, because ultimately the only validation that sticks and counts is what we do for ourselves internally. And that develops at a time in our lives, really between about the ages of 12 and 25, when we learn to be able to take the external validation and pull it into ourselves, and we do it for ourselves. So the example I give you is when you were in junior high, you're too young to remember Jordache jeans and Calvin Klein jeans. But when I was a kid,
Jordache is back.
is it really? Oh my
Yes.
God, they were terrible then. Are they just as bad now? But if you didn't have the right genes, oh my God, like you were, you might as well die because there's no way I'm going to school with these, jeans that were not cool. Wrangler jeans.
I used to go to thrift stores and buy like old Abercrombie sweaters and then take the labels off and sew them onto Aeropostale sweaters.
Exactly.
I don't think I fooled anyone.
But we had to look. External validation was so important. That's the process of development. But as you grew older, and if you think about when you got into years post high school, if you went to college years, it becomes more okay to kind of be yourself. So you weren't so dependent on the approval of other people. That's where you get to that place where it starts to go internal, and you learn to validate yourself. That's the rub for most of us as gay men, because in that period of time, we didn't develop that ability to take it internal, because what we were presenting to the world was a facade. It was not the real me. And the thing is when somebody says, I love you, and what you're presenting is a false me, it doesn't stick. Because they don't know who you really are. When they applaud, when you get the standing ovation, it doesn't mean anything because it's not who you really are. And so it just falls flat. And you keep doing it, trying to get to that well and get something and it's dry. It just doesn't produce for you.
You're so right. The day that I came out to myself was March 16th, 2004. And the reason I came out to myself in my head was because I had this moment of had to be spiritually provided epiphany of I cannot fully love myself or the God that I've taught to believe in or my friends or my family if I don't love myself. So if I want to love people and love God greater, I've got to start with me. Got to.
And loving yourself really is very much predicated upon accepting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't love yourself if you say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to love this part.
Right.
But not this other part. I'm going to love myself, but boy, I really hate this body.
Yeah.
And I've got to do something different. The journey we're on is learning to accept wholly who we are without rejecting any piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me earlier, was I a believer? And I think ultimately, when we reject part of ourselves, it truly is that act of blasphemy or sin or whatever label you want to put on it, but it is missing the mark. It is taking a gift that we were given, the power that we have to go through this life and to find contentment and giving it away. And many of us spent years giving it away with both hands as fast as we could because we wouldn't accept what was. Mm-hmm. We had to be something different. We had to create a different shell for ourselves.
And that idea of giving it away versus not also, I think that's part of getting into stage 3, and it informs every aspect of your life in stage 3. I mean, even, looking at sex, I mean, there's no matter how sex positive we are, like there's an idea of giving something away in every sexual encounter. And when you get into that stage 3, which I want to talk about next, the authenticity, it's not about it leaves that idea of giving it away and then creates this idea of creating something beautiful that's almost holy.
If I see you as the face of God, if I see you as the face of the divine, use whatever label you want to put on that thing, and we are in a sexual encounter, I must embrace all of who you are, not just objectify you for the size of your dick, the size of your muscles, whether you're top or bottom, whether you have a bubble butt or not. And I'm speaking honestly because that's where we live. I mean, the vending machines that are in each of our pockets, we can dial up and have that particular body part in our homes in 20 minutes if we want it, right? That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is being able to see the whole person and to embrace the whole person, because that's that connection. That's where the power really happens. I grew up in a Christian tradition, and I don't believe that by any means is the only way, or necessarily that all of it is true. But I do find some kind of nuggets of truth that it kind of taps on sometimes. And one of them is where 2 or more are gathered together, I'm in the midst of them. And that's reported to have been said by Jesus. Whether it was or wasn't, I don't know, but I know this much. When two people are together, there's something that's powerful that happens. And the first time you see the Grand Canyon, and if you're alone, what's the first thing you think? I gotta take a picture to show people, right? Or you think, oh, damn, I wish so and so was here with me to see this. Because we want that connection. It's powerful for us. We are social animals.
Yeah, yeah.
At our heart, we are social animals. And we need that around us. We crave it. And that says to me that that is really that connection that is the divine. That's what matters in this world. That's the power that changes lives.
You're exactly right. That's one of the reasons I used to be a cruise ship singer. I don't know if you know that or not. And it was, we called that lifestyle glitter covered shit because on the outside it looks fantastic. And it is. I mean, it was one of the best chapters of my life to date. And I miss it terribly. And I cannot wait to go cruise again with friends. But I was going all over the world, waking up in a new country every single day, posting about it, showing pictures online to get that validation. But I wasn't experiencing it with another person, my partner. I mean, friends, yes, and that was great. But I didn't get to look at waking up in Croatia or seeing the summer solstice in Norway with my love. And that became really depressing to experience greatness without the great one. And so that's why I left ships.
Right. What was the term you used for the cruise?
Glitter covered shit.
We should form the Church of Glitter Covered Shit.
Well, I think many churches already are glitter covered shit.
I know. That's my point.
Right. Yes. But so getting from, how do we get from stage 2 then into stage 3? Because, and I mean, I have those items highlighted as well about finding the contentment, doing what brings you joy, finding your passion, all that stuff. How do we get there?
Well, for most of us, there's a crisis, honestly. And it is because what we were doing in stage 2 doesn't seem to work. And it really is a bit of despair often. And it varies from person to person. And let me back up and say something here. Please, I hope your listeners understand this. My work has been with gay men all of my career. I am not excluding lesbian women or trans folks at all. It's just not been my work. It's not been my experience. And I really see a pattern in my field of psychology that we have had this horrible history of taking a male's view of the world and projecting that onto others. So the reason why I don't say LGBTQ is because I don't want to make that mistake. I think a lot of what I'm talking about does relate to trans and does relate to lesbian women, but there needs to be a lesbian woman and a trans person who comes forward and really tells their story and makes that real. Because I think
speaks to that experience, right?
There's too big of a danger for me to project my white male middle class experience onto others in that way. So I just have.
But I think people also trying to project their own white male experience is what causes a lot of the problems in the world and the church today anyway. So I'm glad you recognize that.
No, it does, very much so. So a lot of my work has been that, but so that hence the reason why I use the pronoun he when I'm speaking and talk about gay men. But the bad news is that there usually is a crisis between stage 2 and stage 3. There needs to come a time where we have a release, almost a reset, where we go back to baseline. Because a lot of what we're doing isn't working. And the way in which we have to stop and take stock of where we're going and what our life, the relationships in our lives, why we're with this person, we're in this job, much of it relates to stage 2 kind of stuff. You know, it's about validation, or it's about the way they look on our arm, or we objectified them sexually, so we got off on that, and that made for a great relationship for a while, but it didn't fulfill. We have nothing that really brings us together in any significant way. So often, much like for myself, there comes a breakup, or perhaps it's a loss of a job. Sometimes it's the death of a parent. It's some kind of crisis that causes us and calls us to look at our lives. And we then begin to say, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be something that's different than just doing the same old treadmill that's getting me nowhere. And in that point, I think we're ready to really start exploring authenticity in the true sense of the word. And that is learning who I am first, and then being able to live that life and to be that person without pretense. And those words are really, they roll off the tongue pretty easy, but the reality of it is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It's understanding me and being able to enact that takes every day that we're on this planet to learn how to do it.
Yeah. Well, then, how do we do it?
Well, we don't get it perfect, that's for sure, and we try. You get in your feet and you do. And then you learn from it organically. And it gives you information about what is or what isn't you, what fits, what doesn't fit. And you move from there to the next thing. You know, a lot of these are kind of superficial things, but in my life recently, I've always driven European sedans as an adult. I started to say, don't ask me why, but I can tell you why, because I thought they looked hot and I liked driving them. And recently, it's like I kind of came to terms with some of that. That's really not me. And bought a pickup truck. That's
Oh,
me. That's
yes.
me. Growing up in Louisiana, that's what I loved. I'm always hauling something from Home Depot. That's also me. My happy place is in the lumber department of Home Depot. I love it. That and the tools. I have every tool that Craftsman ever made, and I lust after a few that other companies have made.
I
But
drove
that's
I
that's
drove
how.
Jeeps for 16 years of my life. No, longer than 16 years. It was about 18 years of my life, from 16 until last year when I brought a Prius. And that was a sign of me moving from stage 2 to stage 3 because the Jeep was just to support the facade that I wanted the world to see. He's a butch
Exactly.
queen.
I'll tell you a story at some point of stuck up in Telluride, Colorado, in a Jeep because I used to love to go four wheel. Because that's authentic. That's like the thing. I love to get on four-wheel drive roads and go all over the place. Something I did as a kid with my dad and really enjoyed, and it persists. But I didn't do it when I was younger because it didn't show well. It didn't. It wasn't the thing that was going to attract guys or what I thought would. You learn to begin to drop that. That's not the most important thing. You know, I'm in my 50s now and single, which I never thought I'd be in my 50s and single ever. I've been in a relationship most of my life.
This is also a call to my listeners that Dr. Alan Downs is a single, attractive gay man living in Palm Springs, California. You can look him up.
Oh Lord, no.
I'm here for you, Alan.
Thank you, thank you. I need that. But it was not what I ordered. That was not on the menu. I had always been in a relationship, and I thought I would get to this point in life and be in a relationship. And so the challenge for me in stage 3 is learning to be at content and peace with the life that I have, and I have a great life. I get to do what I want to do. I'm in control of my schedule. I live in a town that I absolutely adore. I live on a street where every single resident is gay. Now,
Oh,
where can you say that?
I
Well, I
bet it's
live
a
in a
very,
town.
very, very clean street.
Well, as one friend said, "Oh my God, you live on the slutty end of that street."
Oh
And
no.
do we have to be so judgmental about it?
Is it a cul-de-sac?
No, it's not. But it's got a gay guest house on one end of it that's quite notorious.
Oh, I've probably been there.
Haven't we all?
But you describe the idea of contentment as being a three-legged stool, and the three legs that make up the stool of contentment are passion, love, and integrity. Again, easily rolling off the lips. How do we
Right.
find those three things?
And with those things, we do it with our feet, and do it by digging into our own heart to understand what it is that we feel and what brings us joy. The only guide that we've been given, the only stone tablet that really came down off that mountain is joy. It's the only guide we have. And when we peel away the layers of the onion of our lives, and when it comes to the day that we are going to leave this life, the thing that's going to matter the most to us is joy. Did we do everything we could to find joy and to experience joy in the presence of the other people that were dear to us? Did we bring joy into their lives? And so learning to be able to find it, learning how to set the stage for it is critically important. Joy doesn't behave very well. We can't command it to show up. If anybody that's been to a wedding knows that planned merriment is bullshit. It just doesn't happen. The more you plan for it, the worse it gets often, and joy doesn't show up. But when we can be fully present in the moment and fully connected with who we're with, if we're with someone at the time, joy sometimes does show up. and it's unexpected often, and it's one of those things that we have to embrace in the moment. So when you ask about stage three, there's no one formula for it, but it is about making ourselves available for those moments. How do you be present in your life in this moment right now? Not thinking about what the next new thing is going to be, not running after the next guy. I'm guilty. I certainly have a profile on Scruff. I've had one on Grindr. I've spent hours that I frankly wish I could get back on some of those apps. They pull us away from the present moment, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with them, except for the fact that they seem to be a barrier to experiencing joy.
You're correct. They are the wall between stage 2 and stage 3, or at least the foundation for the wall. I don't want to put all that blame on them, but
it's how we use them, frankly.
Sure,
It's
sure, yes.
When you and I first were talking before we started recording, I mentioned something about an interviewer had asked me the question, what is the thing that gay men could do that would improve their lives? And my answer to that is stop eating from the vending machine. It brings these delicious treats into our lives for a while, but when you make that the main course, your heart and soul start to starve for something more substantial, something that means something that carries you through the moment. And we have really trained our minds that, sex is about the body part, it's about the act, and good sex is about the best body part and the best act. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Sex is about the connection between two human beings, perhaps more if that's what you do, but it is about that connection. It's not about the way we divide it up, and it's not the main course.
Right.
It is something that enhances our lives. Thank God we have it, but
Right.
it's not the main course.
Yeah.
When we try to make it the main course, inevitably we get off track from finding our own joy, and it becomes a compulsion. It becomes something that we really don't know what else we would do. I love Palm Springs. I'm a huge fan, ambassador for it. But one thing I do notice here is that there are many gay men my age and older that are on that treadmill still, and they're not getting joy out of it. It's just, I gotta have sex because that's what we do.
Yeah.
I gotta run after the guy because that's what I've done all my life. Instead of being able to have a life that's full. And if you want to access that, you want to have a great time, good, go for it. And let it enhance your life. But don't make it the main goal, because when it comes to meaning and purpose, it falls short.
Yeah.
And it doesn't serve us well.
Well, and even like with talking about, Palm Springs a little bit, and just this is my own transparency, but one of the reasons I love Palm Springs is because of the attention I get from those people. That's my stage 2 addiction. Like I am a younger guy and I work very hard to stay in shape. So when I go there, I get more attention than I do in West Hollywood, because in West Hollywood, I blend in. In Palm Springs, I tend to stick out. And I've been made aware of that. And I will tell you, as I've been working to move towards my idea of stage 3, my obsession with Palm Springs has started to normalize, to regulate. As opposed, it's still my happy place because I love the desert. I love going to quads, and to be quite honest, if there is a heaven, it will be quads for me. It's just going to be a bunch of old queens waving around napkins and singing show tunes until 4:00 in the morning. But in making yourself available and vulnerable for joy, you then have to recognize what joy is and then repeat that action, like you say in your book. So how do we differentiate that joy from?
Can I forgive me for interrupting you.
No.
Let me take an example from your life, because that's a really good one. And it's one that's true for me too. I have pushed enough metal around a gym that I could have built the city of Los Angeles, I think, and maintained the perfect abs for a good 20, 30 years. I came to a period where for 5 years, I deliberately stopped going to the gym for 5 years. Now, what that was about for me was, and that's what it took for me. I'm not saying it takes that for everybody, but I needed to let go of that addiction to the valid. I knew when I walked in a room that I could command it if I wanted to. And I knew if I took my shirt off, I knew exactly what things I could do which would gain me attention. And in order for me to come to terms with that, I had to let that go. And so when you walk in the room, then it's just Alan. It's not the perfect body. It's not, straight out of the gym with the pump with all the stuff that goes with it. And if you're going to love me and if you're going to be with me, you're going to do it because we connect and not because of the other things. I love a beautiful body, don't get me wrong. I actually love working out. I've gone back to the gym in recent times, but I only really allowed myself to go back when I knew that it was something that I could manage and it wouldn't become the main course for me. It wouldn't become the sole activity of meaning and purpose in my life.
So the next step of this is going to be love. And you say it in your book, while passion is about feeling joy in activity, love is about noticing joy in the presence of another person. And you've kind of already hit on this a bit, that connection.
Well, people think of love as an emotion, right? And let me talk about this because this is a life-changing insight. Really, when I got it, it makes such a difference. When we look at a PET scan of emotion, meaning we put a scan on your brain and we look at the waves of the different profiles for each emotion. When you say, I'm in love, and when you say, I'm feeling joy at this moment, those PET scans look identical. Because it's in essence the same thing. We make a judgment about our experience when we're experiencing joy, and we call it love. There's a question that as a therapist you get all the time. To this day, after practicing for 30 years, I do not know the answer to it. And it is, do I love this person or am I in love with this person? Now, it's kind of nonsensical because we don't say, am I angry or am I in anger with this person? Which is an emotion. Anger is an emotion. The reason for that is because it's a cognitive thing that we do. We assess, we look over time, we say, oh yeah, I feel joy. And in the terms of romantic love, I feel sexual arousal associated with it. I must be in love with this person. Now, why that's significant is two things. Any relationship, anybody that's been in a relationship for more than 2 seconds knows that eventually some of that joy starts to wane, okay? Life goes on, we do different things, even when it comes to sex. Sometimes it's not the new thing, and so you're not getting the adrenaline rush associated with the sex, and so it doesn't necessarily carry the same power, and you begin to wonder, am I in love with this person? Did I fall out of love with them? Well, you don't fall in love and you don't fall out of love. What you do is you stop experiencing joy in the presence of each other. So, and here's the insight. If you want to correct that, stop nitpicking it. Stop focusing on all the ways in which you're different and get back to the thing that brings you joy. Experience joy together. When couples will come in and say, we love each other, but we're having a hard time, and then I really dig in, you know what I often find? They haven't felt joy together for decades, some of them.
God.
They remember it, they have the memory of it, but they don't have the experience. And when they come in to see a therapist, they often want you to be the judge, and they're both going to prove to you their case is better than the other person's case. And they often get really frustrated with me because I'm not going to play that role. I'm not even going to nitpick. What we were going to talk about is what brings you joy together. And let's get back to that place. Because one thing I know is that if I can get you back to joy, a lot of those nitpicking things kind of begin to dissolve away. They have less importance when you feel that experience together. It's so much so that actually about 2 years before I closed the practice down in Beverly Hills and moved to Palm Springs, I would require any couple before they would see me to volunteer together for 4 hours. And the point of that was really to get them to work together and to remember, number one, the things that they may have lost together, and also what brings them joy. Because nothing brings us joy if we really tune into it than reaching out and helping our fellow man.
You're right.
There's a joy with that that surpasses almost every other joy that we get.
And the bookend of this segment of love is if the next time you say you love someone in your life, ask yourself, does this person bring me joy? And if you answer honestly, the answer will at times surprise, maybe even shock you. But anything less than that is not love. And to me, the takeaway from that reminds me of Marie Kondo, that show on Netflix, that if they don't bring you joy, Marie Kondo that bitch, boy, bye.
Exactly. Either that, or let's say this. Let me tell you a quick story. The book is dedicated to Blake and Bob, and Blake and Bob are dear friends of mine. Bob has since passed away, And Blake and Bob were, before Bob passed away, were together for about 40 years. And I loved them both dearly. But toward the end of Bob's life, and I think Blake, even hearing this, would say it's true, is that he became a little difficult. It's a little bit of a curmudgeon, and God help you if he'd had a gin martini, because it became even worse. And so as Bob was ill, I used to fly down to Key West to see and be with him some. And one time, Bob had been particularly difficult at dinner. The entree was wrong. Everything was wrong. He was telling the waiter to send it back. And so he got up and went to the restroom. And Blake looked at me, and he could tell I was frustrated with Bob. And he said, you know what? When you get to our age, you need to have someone in your life that remembers you when you were young and hot. And it really said something to me, because one thing that I think, because our history is so short as a gay movement, that we forget is that there's something very important about the historical significance of people in our lives. So when we say Marie Kondo it, I would say yes at times, but when it comes to love, if we can get back to joy and experience that and have that continuity in our lives, it only contributes and increases our contentment in life as we get older. I think all of us want to get to the place where, as we see our bodies begin to decline, as we see our value in a sexual economy decline, because it inevitably does for all of us, that we are content and that we have around us those that accept us and love us, and that we have wonderful memories of joy together. I think one of the things we're a little too quick, and I would include myself in this, is to sometimes take folks and maybe just let them go a little too soon, rather than doing the work of digging in and saying, wait a minute, let's get back to what we experienced together, the joy that brought us together.
Yeah.
That's really important. Just to finish up that story with Blake and Bob, they met in New York City, and Blake was in advertising. Bob was riding a motorcycle along the street and saw Blake in an overcoat with his briefcase and told him to get on back of that motorcycle, and they were together for 40 years after that.
I'm wondering if that's gonna work in my Prius now that I've left the Jeeps. If I just holler out my window, hey, hop in.
Well, one of the things about being authentic is I have found that a pickup truck is a man magnet.
Oh, honey, no. When you said that about how that wasn't what got the guys when you were younger, I feel like that is what gets the younger guy now. Like I love a good pick. No, I told my dad, like, after this, I want to get a Toyota Tacoma quad cab really bad, just to stay with the Toyota brand, but also because it's a hot truck.
Let me put a little idea in your brain, because this is what I'm working toward. I actually ended up getting a Ford Ranger, which is not the exact model I want. If anyone's following the car market right now, you cannot get a truck. They're just not available.
Yeah.
What I want is the Ford Lightning, which is the electric Ford F-150.
Yes.
And Ford has a program that if you're a current Ford truck owner, they give you a discount on the Lightning when it comes out. So my plan is to go to the Lightning. So it's the perfect marriage of the Prius and the truck.
Oh my God, I love that. The Jeep also has a new electric Jeep, which I feel it defeats the whole purpose of a Jeep, because there's something egotistically fulfilling about knowing that you just have the money to spend on $80 of gas per week. So can you speak to me about the third leg of this stool, which is integrity? This is the one that I'm the most unclear about.
Integrity, the key word here is learning to live and be and exist honestly. Integrity means, if you think about the integrity of anything other than art, let's take it out of the context of human beings. If I were to say the integrity of any object, we're talking about the whole of that object. Does it stay together? Does it hold together? When I'm talking about integrity, I'm talking about not compartmentalizing, not keeping the secrets that this part of my life knows this, but this part knows that, and the two of them don't meet. And we are brilliant at coming up with rationalizations for why we should compartmentalize. You know, people at work do not need to know about my private life. They don't need to know about who's my partner, or even if I'm gay. Well, they don't. It's true. But when we live in integrity, those walls begin to come down. And we're not necessarily sharing things that are wildly inappropriate, but we do talk about our lives because it is our life. It is who we are. I am Alan. I'm a gay man. Do you know how long it took me to say that publicly in a way that was, on the Oprah Winfrey Show? And by the way, the first episode I was on with that, they showed pictures of my ex-wife, uh, and it was sort of horrifying because for the first time, I think I'm telling how many millions of viewers that I'm gay for the first time, right? But that's really liberating because that's me. That's who I am. And I thought, as I said, I feared that that was going to somehow limit me and make me less. And in my career and in my personal life, the more I got comfortable with it, the more I spoke it, the more it brought that was positive in my life. The thing is, the more comfortable we are with ourselves, the more comfortable other people are. So when we put energy into compartmentalizing and to keeping this part of our life private and keeping these secrets, and then revealing these other things, the more it diminishes us.
Yeah.
Secrets, again, forgive me for going back to Bill W., but out of that whole culture of AA came the phrase, it's the secrets that make you sick. I think it's such a great way of summarizing it. They really do.
Yeah.
Every secret has a cost. And you have to ask yourself, how far in debt are you? And how long are you going to carry that burden?
Yeah. And y'all, just I know that we have made this seem very communicatively efficient and easy, and seemingly attainable to do in a short amount of time. But you also talk about, and this is going to be kind of where we start to wrap up. But it's not the big changes, the big efforts that equate to the most results. It's those little choices, the day to day. One of the things that I told you before we started recording that that didn't resonate with me before, years ago when I read this book for the first time, but when I reread it this week, the question, what would the man I wish to become do in this situation? And it just hit me like a sack of bricks. And it took me back. My parents came to visit back in May for the first time here in LA. And it was a big deal because they'd never been here before. And it'd been years since we've seen each other. We've been through a lot since we've seen each other. And in prep for their visit, I'm vacuuming, I'm dusting, which I do on a day-to-day basis anyway, because I like clean spaces. But I realized I was de-gaying my home to make my parents feel comfortable. And I had this like semi panic attack, and I called a couple of friends and I was like, what do I do? Like, I'm taking down artwork that looks gay, and I'm like doing these things to cleanse my home of anything queer. And then about, 1 o'clock in the morning, the day, night before they arrive, I re-gayed my house. And I by no means live in stage 3. I am a big fan of stage 2. My goal is to live in stage 3. But doing that resulted in us having a more authentic visit. And what I realized too is I thought that it was me that needed to take the pressure off of needing to appease them or get their validation, but they needed that almost more than I did. I think me taking the pressure off of them allowed them to breathe easier around me.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, not all that long ago, my father passed away. And my father, in my adult life, never called. He never spent a night in my home. He never ate a meal at my table. He was a very pleasant man. He wasn't angry, but the gay issue was just a step too far for him. And for me, I was living earlier years in my life, 20s and first degree, in a place where I couldn't show myself. I was hiding. I was in that sort of stage 1 place where I wouldn't reveal. And as a result, as I got older, we grew far apart that when my dad passed away, he didn't really know me and I didn't really know him. And it will be one of the regrets of my life that we weren't able to get through that somehow we weren't able to mend it. It wasn't all, I don't take it really on as really even most of my fault. It was an issue with both my parents, who were very fundamentalist Christian and believed that I had literally become the mouthpiece of the devil and have had very little to do with me as a result of it. In fact, honestly, the writing of The Velvet Rage was, in essence, severed my relationship with my parents. Because, as my mom said, it was bad enough that you wrote the book, but then you went on national television. And what that was saying was, it was bad enough that you wrote the book, but my friends and neighbors won't read that book, but they will see you on national TV. And at that point, it was too much for them. So it was a bit of a price that I paid, but it set me free. because for years I had that book in my mind, written in my mind, but I wouldn't write it down and I wouldn't publish it because honestly I was kind of waiting for my parents to pass away because I thought I can't do this. It's going to, push them away. And when I didn't do it out of malice toward mom and dad. I did it out of joy and passion for my own life. And it allowed me to let go and to be myself and to not carry that burden of constantly seeing my life through their eyes and cleaning it up through their eyes. Anyway, to add just kind of a light ending to this, a friend of mine many years ago from San Francisco had a similar relationship with his parents. And his mom came to visit, and he had DJ'd his whole apartment. We spent hours like making sure there was nothing there. And this guy, by the way, had actually been an actor in a porn film. So there was some DJing that really had to happen here.
Oh
So
God.
his mom came, and we were all sitting around very politely and talking. And then I went to the restroom and came back, and I was shocked at what I saw. Walking across the coffee table was this sort of wind up walking penis that the mother had found, and she was very shamefully looking and saying, "What is this?" Apparently, she had found it somewhere in the couch and pulled it out, and it was walking across the table. That was the thing that really kind of opened up that relationship, and eventually he was lucky. She accepted him for who he was, and he has a great relationship with her to this day.
God, that that's amazing. I don't know if I'm prepared for that moment in my relationship with my parents, but but Mazel Tov. Oh my gosh. And y'all, I
Hey,
also
Matt,
like you what?
let me interject something here. When we started out earlier, I told you that I have a bit of a secret, and since we talked about
Yes.
integrity, can we talk about that?
Yes.
There's a big thing that's going on with the Velvet Rage, and I'm really, really excited about it. Uh, Ryan Murphy and Netflix have purchased the option for a television series based on the book, and
I've heard of him. I've heard of him.
you've heard of him? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of the fact that he happens to be the most successful producer in the world right now. And took us a year to negotiate this. One of the things that Ryan said to me in a call before we finalized it was he said, and this was with Ratchet being number one in the world at that point, he said, my shows are number one in countries where it's illegal or it's you put your life in your hands if you come out as gay. He said, I want to take that power and take the Velvet Rage to those countries and to those people.
Yes.
And that's what did it. I said, let's do it. Let's make this happen. So in the next, it's going to take us a while. COVID has really screwed up production, as everyone knows. But as some of this clears out, we're hopeful to get this into production and have it on Netflix within the next year and a half, hopefully at the most.
Fuck
Um,
yes.
yeah, really excited.
It's interesting too because I found some humor in the idea of you presenting a big secret today, and the first chapter of your book is "Little Boy with a Big Secret," and I thought, what a beautiful like nod to one's self about the book to screen journey.
No, I've been carrying the secret for a while because we signed this deal back in January, and it's been something that's I've been so excited about, and it's actually taken a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to say that we're down the road on that, and hopeful that this will be on air with Netflix in the near future.
Yeah, and I'm just blown away and humbled that you would find it fit to present that secret on my show. It's so exciting. I have chills right now. And just before we go too, I want to make sure everyone understands, and we've hit on this, but to reiterate, it's toxic to pursue perfection on a daily basis. And one of the things I try to give myself grace about is instead of pursuing perfection on a day-to-day basis, pursue excellence, because excellence can fluctuate. And so
Yes.
when I say that I'm not living in stage 3, but I, play around in stage 2, it's giving myself permission to not be 100% committed to succeeding in stage 3 allows me to flow freely between the two. And I know that you've said many times before in this show, even like I'm speaking to myself here. So
Right.
can you hit on that just for a second too?
There's a quote from the Course in Miracles that I like. There are actually a number of quotes from the Course in Miracles that I like, but this one is every moment gives us the choice, gives us the opportunity to choose again. Every moment gives the opportunity to choose again. And that's the path. It's not perfection. It's we live our lives, and then we have the opportunity to notice, and if we're off track, we get to choose again, and we get ourselves back on track. It's about resilience, not perfection.
Yeah.
Always. And being able to notice when we've harmed others and do a repair. When we've gotten off track, when we've acted out of integrity, to repair it and bring it back into integrity. Because there's no one on this planet, myself included, that walks 100% in integrity and perfection all the time. It doesn't, it's a fantasy in
Yeah.
our minds. It's not reality. The reality is resilience. And the more that we can practice that, the more empathy and compassion we can have for those around us who are struggling and who are at a place where maybe they could do better, but we're not seeing it. The fundamental dialectic of life, the place where we all live, and we have to learn to really grapple with it, is every human being is doing the very best in this moment that he or she can. That's number one. Number two, we need to do better. Both those things always remain true.
Yeah.
Always. Always. And so when we accept that about others and about ourselves, it allows us the grace to forgive. It allows us the grace to allow those that, if I may, a little digression, but HIV within the next 5 years will slide down the list of priorities in terms of gay men's health care. I sit on a commission for the American Medical Association and the training of physicians. We had some of the best vaccine experts in the world talking about HIV vaccine, and their assessment was within 5 years we will have that. And do you know what will go up to number one? A meth addiction. It is ravaging our community, and it's doing it in a way that's unnoticed because it doesn't go on the death certificate. When you die from, it's very difficult to overdose on that drug. Most people don't know that. Physiologically, you don't overdose on it. What happens is, from the continued dehydration, there's organ failure, there's heart attack, there's stroke, a number of issues that happen, cancers that can sometimes happen as a result of it. And so they slip away from us. But you, me, every one of us knows someone in the gay community that has just slowly but surely slipped away from us. And before long, you don't hear from them, you don't see them. It reminds me of the 80s when we'd go to the gym and someone wouldn't show up and you didn't dare ask because you knew that meant likely they were gone.
Yeah.
This is something it's flying under the radar, and it's really near and dear to my heart. And I think it's something we all need to be aware of, that those folks are not bad people. They should not be necessarily intervened upon. They shouldn't have their rights taken away, but they are struggling and they're wounded. And when the time comes for them that they get to a place for the teachable moment, when they're ready to hear it, as a community, we need to do everything we can to pour our resources and our hearts and our arms around them and accept them. Sadly, there is a shunning that goes on right now among those that they get the look, they lose the teeth, they get the face, and we reject them. They become the lepers of our community. And I'd like to say that I think one thing that we find when we get into stage 3 is that our empathy and compassion becomes endless. And we need to take that and wrap it around those that are really hurting. And those folks are really hurting in our community right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate there being such an ecological approach to your work, because it's not just about doing the work for ourselves, but doing the work for ourselves so that we can then help others do the work for themselves. And I usually ask my guests to kind of give an actionable item to sign off, but you did that for us with that. And I genuinely appreciated you calling our attention to that, because you're so right. It doesn't fit into what we perceive as the gay lifestyle, the gay joy that gets us from stage 1 to stage 2.
Right.
Alan, I can't go ahead. Sorry.
Every teacher, we talked a little bit about believing and spirituality. If you look at any teacher, way shower, guru, prophet, you name it, virtually all of them have a tenet that says that do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. And that's the key, because that brings us joy. It's a selfish act. It brings us joy to be able to reach out in the community and help others who are wounded and less fortunate.
Yep. Alan, I'm It's been such a gift to have you today for me, and I know for my listeners. And every time I read your book, it is a new gift unwrapped, because I'm always in a different place in life, hopefully, and I respond to things differently. Where can we find the book? Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at downsphd.com on the web. You can buy the book almost anywhere. Amazon is probably the best outlet for it, but it's available. Typically, most bookstores are carrying a few copies of it. I know if you come to Palm Springs, any of the bookstores here, I try to keep signed copies available in the bookstores. So come to Palm Springs. We'd love to have you here and buy a book.
Unless you're a bridal party, in which case you can stay away from Palm Springs.
Stay away.
And where are you on social media?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. And Instagram, I think I'm Velvet Reed on there, and I'm pestering Instagram all the time. So if you want to hear from me, get on there, and you'll hear more than you want to know.
Yes, and as we discussed earlier, you are a single gay man in Palm Springs. So tell us what gym you're at, what store you shop at, where they can find you.
You can find me haunting World Gym from time to time.
Yes.
I'm the one where the weights are falling down and it's all awkward.
I'm the biggest pimp in the world. I want nothing more than to find love for all my people. So you're on my list. Alan, thanks again, and I can't wait to have you back, okay?
I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, Matt.
If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health or suicidal thoughts, there are resources and trained professionals available 24/7. It's okay to not be okay. Please call 800-273-TALK, 800-273-8255, or by going to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. For youth and young adults under 25, the Trevor Project is available 24/7 at 866-488-7386 and at thetrevorproject.org. The Fagnostic Podcast is a Matt Hayes production, hosted by, you guessed it, Matt Hayes. You can find me at matthayes.com, that's MATHAYES.com, or on all the socials at Hayes on it, HAYES on it. Music by Michael Spicer. The Fagnostic Podcast is proud to be supported by the Del Shore Studio. Whether you're acting from a pulpit or a proscenium, whether you're writing for a Bible study or a scene study, the Del Shore Studio is an online school offering classes and workshops encouraging all artists to scratch deeper. Visit thedelshorestudio.com for more information.